After a long off season, we made it. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, March 25th, opening night. Let's go. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, our biggest winners and losers from the spring. More injuries out of nowhere. They are just piling up over the past couple days. We have the prospect stashometer, and we will end things with week one sleepers. That's right. Sleepers already. I've been getting lots of questions about who do I pick up to replace Suzuki and Kyle Stowers and all these pitcher injuries. So we'll address some of that a little bit later on. Chris, why don't you get us started with your biggest winner from the spring?
Okay, I will go with Chase DeLauder, who we've mentioned a few times in recent days, but certainly have not given the amount of hype that Connor Griffin or Kevin McGonigle or JJ Weatherholt have gotten. But I'm starting to lean in the direction of Chase DeLauder's just going to be a star as long as he manages to avoid breaking his foot every 2 months, because he has played 138 games in his career, not counting Arizona Fall League or spring training, just minor league games. And he's got like an 890 OPS. And that's 138 games over 4 seasons, where he has missed a ton of time and lost a ton of developmental time. And he missed time in college too. And to be able to put up those kind of numbers, given everything he's gone through, is impressive enough. In spring training, he hit 3 homers. He struck out 4 times in 43 trips to the plate. He had an OPS near 1,400. He had a max exit velocity of 115.3 miles per hour and an average exit velocity of 94 miles per hour.
That's pretty good.
And an in-zone contact rate of like 94%, which is like Stephen Kwan levels. I'm not actually saying Chase DeLauder is Stephen Kwan, but with plus power, but I think this dude can just hit. And I think he might just be the Guardians' second best hitter already. And, I mean, low bar. You could be damning with faint praise there, but hey. And if Chase DeLauder stays healthy, I think he's going to be awesome. I don't have any reason to believe he will stay healthy. He has literally never done that. But I over the last week or so, I've tried to make sure that I get him in as many spots as possible in my final drafts. I ended up missing out on him in my last draft today, unfortunately. And I'm pretty bummed about it. I still got Cam Smith as my dollar outfielder. I still like him too. But I'm really, really impressed with Chase DeLauder.
Yeah, I've got a bit of FOMO there as well. I mean, he has the pedigree. Once upon a time, he was the 16th overall pick way back in 2022. So,
and probably would have been higher if I believe he didn't break his foot his last year in college.
Where it all started. It all started in college.
That he has done 3 or 4 times since then, I believe. So, yeah, it's been a real problem.
Technically, he's only broken the foot twice, but one of those breaks required 2 operations.
Okay, that's what it was, yeah.
The NFBC ADP over the past week, not that many people are drafting at this point, but just to give you a reference point, Chase DeLauder, 272 as the 64th outfielder off the board. Chris, I know you like a lot of them. How do you rank the rookie outfielders? DeLauder, Carson Benj, Justin Crawford, Owen Casey.
Okay. I would take Benj ahead of DeLauder, but that's mostly just injuries. I think put them head-to-head, Chase DeLauder might just be the better player. But Benj seems likelier to stay healthy and is going to be a more well-rounded contributor. I think he's a good hitter who should steal some bases. DeLauder probably not going to steal many bases at all. Then I would go, it was Casey and Crawford were the other two?
Yes. Yep.
I would go Crawford and then Casey, but I do like Casey quite a bit.
All right, Scott, let's go over to you. Your biggest winner from the spring.
I'm curious who you have, Frank, because I'm sure there are 2 names that everybody at home is screaming.
We have to give an honorable mention because I'm going to talk about Connolly early. I think he's kind of a late rising winner here.
Yeah. I mean, nobody was talking about DeLauder until he homered twice just yesterday. So
Matt McClain, Mick Abel, and Kevin McGonigle kind of just feel like a big.
Oh, I wasn't even gonna. Jack Caglione too. I was thinking the two names everybody was screaming was Matt McClain and Jack Caglione, but
and we have talked about those names a lot. So, but they are big winners from the spring. Sure. There's no doubt about it.
If we're putting the superlative on it, then you kind of have to say them. But for me personally, the player who I think has raised his stock the most in my eyes is Cole Young of the Mariners, who I had no interest in at all. Even in AL only, I was trying to fill a middle infield spot late. This is like deepest possible fantasy league, AL only roto league. It was in February, late February. Spring had just started. I needed one for cheap. And there were actually the last middle infielder who I thought had a decent chance of playing regularly available was Cole Young. And I could have made a play for him. I could have gone that extra $1 for him, but I'm like, he's just not that good. I'm not convinced he's good. So I let him go to somebody else. And that is looking like my biggest draft regret right now because he has been completely transformed this spring. So I actually kind of doubted him even as a prospect. Basically, from the time Cole Young was drafted, he consistently ranked among the top 100 prospects, was supposed to have just tremendous hitter instincts. And the numbers were just always kind of so-so. And then he got up to the majors last year, and it was pretty awful for the most part. He homered 4 times in like 270 plate appearances and didn't end up keeping the job the rest of the year, got replaced by like Leo Rivas for the playoffs. And it wasn't even clear that he'd beat out Colt Emerson. Like, it seemed like he was sneaking up behind him and might overtake Cole Young. Cole Young might just miss his chance. But he came to spring, looked more chiseled, like clearly had done some work, had learned some lessons from that first experience. And the way he has impacted the ball this spring, he hit, like I said, 4 home runs and 270 plate appearances last year, 6 just this spring. And you might say, oh, it's the Cactus League, home runs are easy there. We don't have official data for all the 6 home runs, but just kind of reading through articles that were written about them, 3 of the 6 were in excess of 440 feet, it seems like. Like, he was killing the ball.
96 mile an hour average exit velocity.
Yeah, which is, to put that in perspective, like, that's what Judge does. Which is, obviously a small sample. I'm not saying Cole Young's that good, but, like, he showed something this spring for sure. And in those leagues that have an extra middle infield spot, obviously too late in the AL only, but in the standard mixed roto leagues with that extra middle infield spot, Cole Young has been a prime pickup for me for this first run of Fab. Some of the more recent ones, he was just straight up drafted by somebody, but if he's available out there, I've been putting pretty, like Tout Wars, I bid $68 of $1,000 on him. And thankfully I got him because I needed a middle infield option to replace Connor Griffin.
Nice. Yeah. That's a great get there. Big spring here for Cole Young, who's just hitting some massive home runs. And we saw a little bit of it last year. There was a surprising max EV in there, a long home run that he hit. So we thought, all right, maybe there could be a little something here. And showed up to the spring, and he's showing us that something right now. The big winner for me, Connolly Early. Again, yes, Matt McClain, Mick Abel, Jack Caglione. Those are probably realistically the 3 biggest winners and the ones that we've talked the most about this spring. But Connolly Early, man, he is just a big surger here late. We learned on Tuesday that he will be in the Red Sox rotation, expected to start against the Reds here on Sunday. Johan Oviedo will start the season in the bullpen, and all Connolly Early has done since the start of last year is dominate. You look at what he did in the minors, 2.60 ERA, 111 whip, 11.8 K per 9, 4 starts in the majors towards the end of the season, 2.33 ERA, 109 whip, 13.5 K per 9, and then 5 games this spring, a 1.59 ERA, a 0.94 whip, 16 strikeouts over 17 innings, and he made it tough for the Red Sox, and credit to them. They gave him a real shot, and he earned this opportunity. He throws 6 different pitches. I think the command is very good for a pitcher this young. Small sample in the majors last year, but it was a 109 location plus for Connolly Early. And I think I had him before learning that he was on the opening day roster. Around SP 80 or 90, he was just kind of in that stashable range with someone like Robbie Snelling, just a pitching prospect that we're excited about. But I didn't think he would be up. I have now moved him inside of my top 60 starting pitchers. He is just between Shane McClanahan and Edward Cabrera. Very excited about Connolly Early. And he's still out there in a good amount of leagues. He's 57% rostered on CBS, 35% on Yahoo. So I would be looking to add Connolly Early. I moved him ahead of all these other kind of sleeper pitchers we've been talking about lately. Mick Abel, Mike Burrows, Cody Ponce. I moved him ahead of all of those guys. I don't know if you guys feel the same, but I'm very excited about Connolly.
I mean, some might say you're early to early by doing that.
a little late to early, but yes.
I might be late to early because I haven't moved him up that high.
Well, the thing that I want to point out is, like, among all those pitchers you just mentioned, he's the one who's done it already, right? Like, that's a big deal. It's only 19 innings, but McGonigle was pretty terrible at the major league level last season. He had one great start, but other than that, when he was up, I think it was 8 other starts, he was really bad. Connolly Early at least has proof of concept that you can point to.
And you could point beyond just the 4 starts he made last September. I mean, look at what he did in the minors before he got called up. 2.60 ERA, 111 WHIP, 11.8 K per 9. I think he had a better strikeout rate than the other Red Sox pitching prospect.
Peyton Tolle.
Yeah, Peyton Tolle. Even though Tolle gets more attention, gets a higher ranking. I think Early is just one of these unconventional prospects that, you know, people who are used to assessing pitchers kind of that they put them through the same rubric, and Early doesn't score well on that particular rubric, so he tends to get overlooked. But he's got this 6-pitch arsenal, and he mixes it so well, and they're all effective enough that together they turn him into a genuine bat missing machine. We saw it in the minors, we saw it in the 4 starts last year, we've seen it this spring. So we've consistently seen it from Connolly Early. And I mean, if you're moving him that high, I probably need to follow suit because I don't want to be low on Early.
All right, let's take a quick break, our first break. And when we return, spring losers. We've got a lot of news to get to. We'll do all that right after this.
This isn't just combat. It's cinema.
Are you not entertained?
The new home of UFC, Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Let's quickly run through some of the biggest losers this spring. Chris, Lahu Zahur. Who is it?
Not to belabor the point, we spent all spring talking about it, but Spencer Strider looked exactly the same.
Most talked about player since the start of March.
And it's because he was still being drafted as like a top 25 starting pitcher before we saw him this spring, which, okay, I guess maybe you can make the argument that he was going to rediscover himself this offseason. Well, based on what we saw this spring, not really. I mean, the numbers weren't terrible, but he got like 0 whiffs on his 4-seamer. Not literally 0 whiffs, but pretty close to literally 0 whiffs on his 4-seamer, and he's always been a 2-pitch guy. The 4-seamer was a pretty mediocre pitch last season. The slider's still great, and it was still great this spring and all that. But the 4-seamer just hasn't recovered the life that it once had, and then he opens the season on the IL. So I am not precluding the possibility that Spencer Strider could be decent this season. I am pretty much out on the idea that Spencer Strider is going to be an impact pitcher at the major league level this season. So if he was going around 40, 45 before the injury, I think I would have been interested, but he never was. And now we've got this oblique, which doesn't sound terribly worrisome, but it's enough to drop him outside of my top 50 in the rankings.
Yep.
I'm looking at it. We all moved him outside the top 50. I have him at 51, Chris at 52, Scott at 53. I have him right in the middle of that kind of, it's like an injured pitcher tier that includes Rodon, Strider, Cole, Snell, and Trey Savage. I have all 5 of those.
I would
imagine timeline's going to be pretty similar to Carlos Rodon and Carlos Rodon was a lot better last year.
Yeah.
I keep thinking back to the Valentine's Day episode where I had Spencer Strider as a player I love, but less so like I think he's going to be great for fantasy than just I'm admitting I have bias for this guy, and if I see anything to latch onto there, I'm going to latch onto it really hard. And so just keep that in mind. I saw nothing, and you'd see other people try to put a positive spin on his spring starts, like, oh, it was up fastball was up half a mile per hour this time. Oh, there was an extra inch of induced vertical break, or what? Like, he wasn't getting whiffs on it. Like, he's just not going to be able to operate that way. And so I even before the injury, he had dropped like 40 spots in my rankings, and now it's closer to 100, I think, overall.
The biggest faller for me this spring, and I think for many, has been Carlos Estevez. I mean, this velocity thing is crazy. He usually starts slow in spring. Usually starts around 89, 90, and then ramps things up. I couldn't find StatCast data from his spring last year, but he
was sitting around 92 from what I saw.
Okay, because they said that he would start slow, but then he would build up over the course of spring training. His first outing in the regular season last year was March 27th, and he averaged 94.2 miles per hour. His last 3 appearances this spring, he averaged 89.5 miles per hour. And we're pretty much at that same timeline, like March 27th of last year, opening day. We're basically there right now, and he's still below 90 miles per hour over his last 3 outings. So Carlos Estevez, he's been dropping like a rock. His ADP over the past week, 139. I actually thought it would be lower than that, but there are some really low max picks in there. Like 382 is his max pick during that time. And I actually got him at pick 200 in the Tout Wars Champions League last week. Not because I wanted him, but as my third closer in a head-to-head categories league, like, sure, in round 17, if it doesn't work, I'll just drop him. But yeah, man, this velocity thing is pretty scary. And there's pretty good relievers in that bullpen with Lucas Erceg and Matt Strahm. So not saying that he's going to lose his job, but it looks ominous right now, I guess, for Carlos.
Well, go ahead.
I was tempted to bench him. I was setting my lineup in Tout Wars today because I had to immediately insert the guys I picked up off free agency. That's just a rule in Tout Wars. So I went ahead and did that, set my lineup for week 1. I was tempted to just straight up bench Estevez because I'm fearing the 6-run inning and he's my only healthy closer right now in a 15-team Roto League. I ultimately decided against it because it's the short 5-day span and not all of my starting pitchers are making a start during that time. But that's where I am right now with Estevez. I think starting him could be an active harm in a Roto League.
Yeah, for some context, his final 2 starts of last spring, 93.2 miles per hour with the 4-seamer, 93.9. Wow. So that was lower than where he ended up in the regular season, but still, 4 miles per hour up from where he's been this spring. It was also true in his one World Baseball Classic appearance. I
adrenaline should have been.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I don't know. I think they mercy ruled Brazil in that game, so it wasn't. But it was a competitive game. Like, it's still, and so this is a guy that even if he was throwing 94, 95 this spring, I think we would have some concerns.
I wrote about him as a bust back in January before we even knew about anything.
Because he had a 2.54 ERA and 42 saves or whatever it was last season, but the underlying numbers were much worse. They weren't terrible, but it was like a 3.80 xERA or something. And so it's like, well, he's probably going to be significantly worse than last year already. And now he's throwing, 5 miles per hour lower. It just... My pick has been Matt Strahm just because I think he's the best. I just think he's the best pitcher in that bullpen.
Yeah. I agree with that.
And there was some indication in Philadelphia that, I don't know, when he got traded, there was just some comments that he wasn't on board or couldn't get with the program. And I wonder if it was just he wanted a more prominent role and kind of rubbed people the wrong way as a result of that. So, I'm kind of wish casting a little bit on Matt Strahm, but I think he'd be a very good closer if they gave him if they're willing to trust a lefty with that job.
As the person with Estevez, I tried to pick up Strahm and Erceg. I'm having trouble with names today. Yeah, Lucas Ursig. But they were both already rostered. They went in the draft, apparently. That long ago, the concerns for Estevez were that high.
All right. Scott, bring us home with your biggest faller from the spring.
My biggest faller is Roki Sasaki. Not that I was ever as high on him as others were, but it seemed like he ended last year in a good place. He was closing out games for the team that ultimately won the World Series, obviously. He had picked up some velocity during that stint. Seems like he had figured some things out mechanically. And they were the Dodgers, who, we trust their decision-making maybe over any organization right now. And they immediately said, yep, he's going in a rotation. They acted like he was fixed. And then he gave, Strider gave no reason for optimism, but Roki Sasaki, it was just a disaster on every level every time he took the mound.
Strider was getting
decent.
Strider was at least getting decent results.
He looked like a competent major league pitcher at least, but Sasaki. And the only hesitation is that they haven't backed off of him. They've continued to maintain, even with their pitching depth, that he's part of their rotation. But the latest round of comments from Dave Roberts makes it seem like he's wish casting. Like, I know I've seen it in there before, guys. Trust me. I'm obviously paraphrasing here. We're just gonna hope for the best and just stick with him, give him a chance to work through this, because I've seen him do it before. Obviously referring to the relief stint. You haven't seen him do it as a starter before, Dave Roberts.
And honestly, even as a reliever, he had that one awesome game against the Phillies where I think he closed out the series with three shutout innings or something.
Yeah.
He had 6 strikeouts to 5 walks in 10 innings. Like, it
wasn't like true closer caliber.
It was shaky in the NLCS and World Series. I think he had like 5 walks to 2 strikeouts in the NLCS and World Series. Like, I just straight up do not think he looks like a major league pitcher right now. Honestly, the nearest comp, did you guys watch Joseph Contreras in the World Baseball Classic for Brazil? Jose Contreras' son. He's a big time prospect.
First game against USA, yeah.
Big stuff. Had no idea where it was going. That's how it felt watching Roki Sasaki. Joseph Contreras is a high schooler, by the way.
15 walks and 8 2/3 innings.
Yeah.
And 15 runs too.
He just, and like the crazy thing is the velocity was there. He was throwing as hard this spring as he was in the bullpen last year. He just has no command of it, and the fastball shape is still poor. He got like a 3% whiff rate on the 4-seamer this spring. It's just, it looks totally untenable, and it's just, I think the Dodgers are just trying to manage the situation at this point. Like, there was some quotes the other day where he sounded open to being sent back down to the minors. I think that almost has to happen.
I think the name to watch there is Justin Robleski, who made a relief appearance here on Tuesday, 4 perfect innings with 5 strikeouts. He's going to piggyback Ohtani's first couple of starts of the season. But if he looks dominant, I mean, there's a chance they could transition him into that SP5 role. And I know Nick Pollock from Pitcher List has been all over Robleski. So just a name to watch there on the
And I think River Ryan's still out there. Gavin Stone. There was some kind of Gavin Stone had an injury.
He's hurt right now. Stone is. But River Ryan looked good this spring and was definitely a prospect on the rise when he got hurt 2 years ago. I think he had Tommy John surgery. He's back.
I just don't think Roki Sasaki is a major league caliber pitcher right now.
Before we get to the news and notes, 36K by opening day. We are 40 subs away. So if you are watching this and you have not subscribed yet, please help us out. Like this video, subscribe to the channel.
If you're listening, especially.
Yes. If you want to see what we look like.
Yeah.
Remember we got a tweet recently, Chris, that described what they thought we looked like?
Yeah. Someone
said I looked like Chris Farley.
Yeah. Someone said they thought I looked like Nicolas Cage.
Yeah,
that was weird.
You got the coolest description, Chris. They made me sound like Mole Man from The Simpsons, like a little old guy with glasses.
Yeah.
I don't know.
If you want to see us while we record this show, please subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Subscribe to Chris's FBT newsletter as well. CBSSports.com/newsletters. If you're watching on YouTube, you can scan that QR code in the top right corner. That will bring you right to the website where you can sign up for free. Chris puts a lot of work into it, and it's a really valuable tool in season. Lots of news and notes and things from the night before. So definitely recommend subscribing to that if you haven't already. Let's get into the news and notes, and let's talk about some good before we get to all the bad. Kevin McGonigle has made the Tigers opening day roster, and I moved him up to shortstop 16, just behind Dansby Swanson and ahead of JJ Weatherholtz. I had some people tell me it's not high enough. It's too low. Like it's too low. It's I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think there's a clear top 15. And
I think so too.
Without seeing that you did that, I moved him to 16 as well. Like Jacob Wilson is a more sure thing than Kevin McGonigle. But I think Kevin McGonigle might just have more juice. Like it's similar contact skills. Kevin McGonigle is not nearly as contact forward as Jacob Wilson is, but I think he's a better hitter overall.
That is his best tool.
Right? No. But Jacob Wilson is Jacob Wilson. Yeah. But like the thing is, Jacob Wilson makes more contact. I think Kevin McGonigle is probably a better hitter, and I know some people like get caught up on that because they think like hitter just means making contact, but like the contact Kevin McGonigle is going to make should be significantly better than the contact Jacob Wilson makes. Jacob Wilson is a slap hitter. Kevin McGonigle legitimately drives the ball. Like he's had multiple 430-foot home runs this spring, 108 mile an hour max exit velo this spring, lots of 100-mile-per-hour hard hit balls. Average exit velocity was 90.2. It's a situation where like it's probably a 65 hit tool, 70 hit tool maybe, which is really really high end.
Yeah.
But it's also like I think it might be like 60 power. I think it might be 60 game power, even if it's more like 55 or 50 raw, just because he maximizes it really well.
Yeah, opinions vary on that. If he's going to be more like a 50 power, which would be, I don't know, 15 to 20 homers a year.
Yeah.
Versus growing into more like 25 to 30 homer power. I would take the under, I think, wherever you set it for his rookie season. I'd stop short. I understand he's higher in the prospect rankings, and from a dynasty perspective, maybe I'd give a different answer. But I think for 2025, I'd have to stop short of putting McGonigle ahead of Weatherholt, just because we've seen Weatherholt dominate AAA when we've never seen McGonigle play there.
Also has a little more speed.
Yeah, and he's for sure picking up eligibility at second base. We hope McGonigle picks up eligibility at third base, but that's a little less clear. So I'd rather. I just think I feel more confident Weatherholt's going to stick the landing here. Not that I think McGonigle's a low probability play as far as rookies go. I just think Weatherholt is basically can't miss.
Ryan Pepio to the IL out of nowhere with right hip inflammation. It could be a minimum IL stay. Joe Boyle will start the second game of the season. Nick Martinez was pushed back to their SP5 due to a minor hamstring issue. I don't think we have any interest in Joe Boyle.
I mean, he's interesting.
It's one of my deep sleepers.
But
I'm not going.
It can only be 2 starts, you know.
Well, yeah, that's the thing you have to keep in mind about any IL stint right now is we're getting a lot of surprise IL stints. The way it works, you can backdate the IL stints to 3 days before their first game. So presumably they play Thursday, so he's backdated to Monday. And then he has to miss 15 days. So it's just two turns through the rotation for pitchers. He might end up missing 12 days. For hitters, could be just a week. So that's something you have to keep in mind with these early season.
The he being Ryan Pepio, who Boyle is replacing. But look, if Boyle comes up, he gets 20 strikeouts between those 2 starts, which I think it's possible, given how good his stuff is. You know, maybe someone else gets hurt in the meantime. Maybe Steven Matz just gets knocked around, or Nick Martinez, who got knocked around all spring. Maybe Boyle sticks around. He's got to throw strikes. We've said that for a couple years with him, and it hasn't happened with enough consistency to keep him around. But he's certainly had his moments, and the Rays are good at fixing that type of pitcher in particular. So I have interest in Boyle. Not saying I'm rushing to pick him up in a 12-team league, but I'm definitely happy to see him get another look, and I think he could become an early season waiver claim.
By the way, someone mentioned in the chat, and I feel like we should put the context in, if Kevin McGonigle does gain third base eligibility, he would have been my number 9 third baseman in the rankings entering the season. I think it's real close between him and Noelvi Marte, but I would if McGonigle was third base eligible, which it sounds like he might gain third base eligibility at some point. Right. I think he'd be a top 10 option at least.
I would have him at 11, so that would be right behind Chapman and Okamoto for me.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely ahead of Marte in points though. McGonigle.
Yep.
I think probably ahead of Chapman in points too.
Nick Lodolo will begin the season on the IL with that blister on his finger, and honestly, take all the time that you need to get right, because this is something that can linger. It has lingered, and I don't want it to. I have too many shares of Nick Lodolo, so please take your time. Brandon Williamson will take his spot in the rotation. Any interest there with Williamson?
I mean, it is funny how 3 weeks ago it was 4 guys competing for 2 spots in the Reds bullpen or rotation, and then it was 3 guys competing for 1 spot, and now all 3 of those guys, Chase Burns, Rhett Lauder, and Brandon Williamson, make it into the rotation. I would expect Brandon Williamson to be very limited early on. You know, the plan before this injury was to piggyback him with either Rhett Lauder or Chase Burns, it sounded like. So,
and Brandon Williamson is coming back from Tommy John surgery. Got to imagine he's not throwing more than about 110 innings or so this season. I think he's not untalented, but he did get up to 75 pitches in his final spring out.
I would guess we're probably looking at like 85 pitches and, maybe 4 or 5 innings for his first couple of turns, and Lodolo might be back by then. So I don't have a ton of interest for Williamson, but it's definitely let's see what the first couple of starts look like situation.
On the subject of the Reds, a couple of their players who are looking like big spring losers, kind of ending spring on a high note here. One of them we just mentioned, Noelvi Marte. He is sticking around. Purportedly is their right fielder. JJ Bleday, his biggest competition, got sent down. It's kind of surprising because he had a huge spring. But I think Marte's bat won out. He had 5 home runs this spring. So you're fine to roll with him. I know at one point we were talking about moving him way down the rankings. The other one's Chase Burns, who had his best start of the spring here on Tuesday. Went 5 innings, threw 68 pitches, 7 strikeouts, no walks. That was a big thing. He was having some trouble throwing strikes. Got 13 whiffs on those 68 pitches. Looked like the bat misser we know him to be. And ending spring training with a 5-inning start, that makes me feel a lot more comfortable making him active right out of the gate, knowing, or at least feeling like he could give me a reasonably good workload. What you'd expect from a starter anyway.
Jeremy Pena played shortstop in an exhibition game here on Tuesday, 1 for 4 with a homer. Seems good to me. We'll see how that finger responds, and I'm sure we'll know by tomorrow afternoon at some point whether or not he will be in the opening day lineup. Kirby Yates to the IL out of nowhere. Left knee inflammation. Can I interest either of you in Jordan Romano or Drew Pomeranz?
I did pick up Romano in that same AL Only League for a couple bucks the other day before this news broke. I wasn't even confident Yates was going to be a good closer. I think he was their best bet, but I didn't feel confident in him. Romano, it was just a year ago we were drafting him as like a high-end number 2, so I guess it's possible. His velocity was down a little bit more this spring when it already dropped a little bit last year. So I can't say I'm optimistic, but I would guess he's the front runner rather than using the left-handed Pomeranz in that role. Although maybe it'll just be mix and match until Yates gets back.
One name I noticed had a great spring in their bullpen was Sam Bachman. He was terrible last year in the regular season, but it was 1 run over 8 1/3. He had 15 strikeouts to 5 walks, and again, only an 8 1/3 inning. So I have no idea, but I'll just throw a name out there, Sam Bachman. Pete Crow Armstrong signed a 6-year, $115 million extension with the Cubs. The deal begins in 2027 and allows him to reach free agency before his age 31 season. So PCA gets paid. Victor Vodnik appears to be the favorite for Rocky saves. He picked up a save on Monday, and after the game, his manager, Warren Schaefer, said, quote, "We're going to see a lot of that this year late in the game." So sounds like Vodnik is the guy, at least to start. And honestly, might not matter because the Rockies are going to win like 45 games. Kurt Suzuki has not named the Angels starter at second base, but he said, quote, "It'll be a blend of Adam Frazier and Oswald Peraza." All right. Thank you. Garrett Cole, just wanted to mention he made his second start here since coming back from that internal brace procedure. He was at the Cubs, 1 2/3 innings. He recorded 5 outs, 1 hit, 1 run, 3 strikeouts to 0 walks, 4 whiffs on 26 pitches. Velocity was pretty much in line with the last time we saw him in the regular season. So it was down a little bit from his first outing, which was only 10 pitches. And the velo did drop quite a bit from the first to the second inning, but he's still building back up. So I don't want to make too much of it.
I have no concerns there.
Yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts here on Garrett Cole's second start? Only 26 pitches. So
I, on the whole, still think it's really promising. What we've seen from him so far, it's, still a long-ish road ahead, but I think Garrett Cole is going to be very useful this season.
When are we thinking he's back? I'm thinking I'm back. Late April, early May?
I think definitely before the end of May, barring a setback, but obviously he's a pitcher and there will always be setbacks, or there's always the risk of setbacks. So I think a best case scenario could be like early May. Yeah.
All right, let's take our final break. When we return, the prospect stashometer right after this.
You think you understand how this business works, but you don't.
I now know why Monty was so stressed.
What's the plan here?
Landman. New season now streaming. Only on Paramount Plus.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. The prospect stashometer. 1 being no reason to stash. 10 is basically Connor Griffin. It's you are a mustache prospect. So not sure anyone else will be a 10 because Connor Griffin is a 10. He is the top prospect to stash, and we spoke about him the other day.
If I'm remembering correctly, I think Peyton Tolley is a mustache prospect.
He's got,
and maybe that tugboat guy for the Guardians, I think he has a mustache as well.
Does he have a stash?
I think so. That might be wishful thinking on my part, actually.
Peyton Tolley definitely has a stash.
But Peyton Tolley is a mustache prospect for sure.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. We'll talk about him in just a second here. We do have to keep this moving, so let's say like 1 to 2 minutes per player. Bryce Eldridge of the Giants. Scott, we'll start with you. 1 to 10 on the prospect stashometer.
Well, I just put together my top 10 prospects to stash, and he was number 2 on the list, right after Connor Griffin. So if we're giving this a 1 to 10 scale, we're playing that sort of game. I think I gotta go like an 8. I don't know if that would mean there are no 9s, obviously. So you could quibble over the calibration that I'm trying to perform here, but I don't think Eldridge needs to be stashed everywhere the same way Connor Griffin does. I think pretty much all roto leagues where you got to go that deep into the hitting pool. The power is still huge. I think eventually he'll be startable at first base and corner infield, and I think he'll be up sooner than later. It would seem like a foregone conclusion he was on the Giants roster. If you don't believe me, just look at who they're starting at DH now. And I think they just decided he was a little too rough around the edges, both with the strikeouts and the manager brought up defense and base running. I don't know how much they should care about Eldridge's base running, but just little things he needs to work on. He is very young. What's funny though is I wonder, like, since then he's done nothing but make them regret that decision, because he faced them as part of the AAA Sacramento team the next day. And did he homer twice?
He homered in that one, and then he homered the next day.
And he homered the next game when he was back in a Giants uniform. I guess they just needed an extra body.
How about the Giants losing to their AAA team? That was funny.
Yeah, so he got his revenge right away. He's He's shown them what they're missing, and I think he's going to do that at AAA too, and be back before the end of April.
Yep, I think, barring a catastrophe, I think he's back before the end of April. And honestly, it might just be like a 10-day thing before he's back. I think there's a real chance of that.
And to your point, Scott, I don't know that this is the most inspiring prospect to stash list, just because two of the ones we were looking at coming into spring made the teams with JJ Weatherholt and Kevin McGonigle. Obviously, we're happy about that, but that just, that takes two prospects that we would have been stashing away. And
we've got a really interesting group of prospects. Scott, you're going to have your top 10 prospects to stash up on the side. I already have kind of a little breakdown of the top prospects who haven't debuted but will be on the opening day roster, and it's Kevin McGonigle, JJ Weatherholt, Carson Benj, Chase DeLauder, Justin Crawford, Andrew Painter. This is a fun rookie class. Yeah.
Yep.
Banner year for prospects. This is going to be good. I wanted to stress though, Frank, to follow up on your point. Like, stashing prospects isn't for everyone.
It's hard.
If you play in a head-to-head points league with a 5-man bench and you're trying to stream pitchers, you don't need to be stashing any prospects except Connor Griffin. He is the one exception. He needs to be stashed everywhere. But it is more of a deeper league practice, so just keep that in mind.
And if you play in a daily lineup league, you probably can't stash prospects either, because every bench spot is so valuable. You're using so many of those players to get in and out of your lineups. You might need to drop a lot of those players constantly to stream pitchers or hitters, whatever it might be. So it's really hard to stash prospects in a daily lineup league as well. Let's talk about Colt Emerson of the Mariners, who had himself a pretty good spring and performed well in the minors last year. He's still only 20 years old. Chris, where would you put Colt Emerson on the prospect stashometer 1 to 10?
He's still so young that I think it's probably more like a 5 here. The fact that J.P. Crawford was dealing with an injury and they didn't give Colt Emerson a look, I think is telling that they're not quite there. He had a decent spring, though. He didn't look overwhelmed. He's a really good prospect. He had a really good season. This is another one that it could be, Cole Young struggles in April and Colt Emerson gets the call, or Brendan Donovan suffers an injury and they move him to third, or J.P. Crawford's shoulder remains an issue. So Emerson has a lot of paths to playing time. I think we see him in the first half for sure, probably early in the first half.
All right, let's move on to Travis Bazzana of the Guardians, second baseman there. First overall pick back in 2024. Finished his spring pretty strong as well. Hit another home run in the World Baseball Classic. Scott, where is Travis Bazzana on the prospect stashometer?
If Emerson is a 5, I'm gonna go 4 for Bazzana.
I was gonna say 6.
You're gonna say 6. So I had him.
The Guardians could use him.
Yeah. I have Emerson in my top 10 barely, and Bazzana. I have 5 honorable mentions at the end, of Bazzana's among them, just because there wasn't any chatter about him making the team in spring training. It never came up. So
I do think going to the World Baseball Classic was maybe not the greatest thing for the prospects making the team, because they never really talked about it with him. Harry Ford got sent down.
Right. I was going to say, I think it cost Harry Ford the backup catcher job. So I think at Bazzana's case, like, he has to go and perform like he's never performed in the minors before. And I think he could. He's had a little, he hasn't taken to it as easily as you'd expect for a first overall pick, which is what he was a couple years ago. Of course, the Guardians could use him. I remember sitting here at this time last year and saying it'll be real. It won't be long before Bazzana's up. So, like, he actually has to go and perform, I think, which is why I put him a little lower. But if he does, then he could make a quick rise, because Brian Rocchio is who they're starting at second base currently. Yep. And they're also starting Gabriel Arias.
That middle infield situation is
bad.
Is it the worst in baseball?
I don't think it's going to last very long.
Like, would you rather have the Rockies? Like, at least the Rockies have Ezekiel Tovar. Like, I think you might rather have the Rockies middle infield than the Guardians.
Yeah, I mean, even Edward Julian, like,
he's
probably nothing, but
he's got some skills.
Right. I could still see him becoming something, hypothetically.
He was on my deep sleepers list.
Yep. Let's talk about Robbie Snelling, a starting pitcher with the Marlins. Strong season in the minors last year. He had a brutal spring. Strikeouts were still there, 13 strikeouts over 8 1/3, but 12 hits, 7 earned runs. The Marlins have Chris Paddock and Jansen Junk in their rotation. So, Chris, where is Robbie Snelling on the stash-o-meter?
I'd say a 5. It's tough to stash a pitcher. So many things can go wrong along the way. But look, the Marlins did give Paddock real money for the Marlins. I think it was only like a $6 million contract or something. But the Marlins don't tend to just throw away $6 million. So yeah. I think they're going to give him some leash. Jansen Junk, I think that one's just as soon as Braxton Garrett or Robbie Snelling forces the door down, they can move Jansen Junk out of the rotation pretty easily. So the only problem is, Braxton Garrett might be ahead of him in the organizational hierarchy. He was certainly in camp longer than Robbie Snelling. He ultimately was sent back down to AAA as well, but that's the biggest hurdle, I think, is just Braxton Garrett might be ahead of.
I mean, I'm a little worried about how Snelling's going to perform. I know he was ridiculously good down the stretch of AAA last year. Like, maybe hasn't been discussed enough how good he was there. But then to follow it up with this spring,
it's only 8 1/3 innings. So
yeah, it wasn't great.
Yeah,
I thought the stuff still looked good. He got a ton of strikeouts.
I mean, it was every outing.
Sure.
He got rocked. It is a small sample, but he has a history of falling apart. That's how he ended up on the Marlins in the first place. The Padres gave up on him.
There's definitely a chance that I'm just anchoring to like my pre-spring training beliefs on Snelling, just based on what he did last year. Maybe I'm not reacting enough to it, but he was really good.
Oh, it's a small sample. It's spring. I get all of that. But, he could have won a job this spring. I think it was possible if he set the world on fire, and he did just the opposite.
I forgot to mention, we talked about Travis Bazzana. He did hit a max EV of 112 miles per hour this spring. That's 3 miles per hour harder than any ball he hit last year that we tracked. And his average velocity was like 91. So just wanted to mention Bazzana. Maybe there's a little more impact potential there than he's shown so far, certainly.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Charlie Condon, first baseman with the Rockies, 3rd overall pick back in 2024. Solid minor league season last year, had himself a really strong spring, kept the strikeouts down too. Scott, where is Charlie Condon on the stash-o-meter?
I'm going to go 6. I think I think that he would have won the job. They're willing to give him the job if he had a good enough showing, and he did. He looked the best he has since he was drafted. I believe he was the 3rd overall pick out of Georgia, had a record-setting year there with the home runs. But the power just wasn't there his first couple years in the minors like it was promised to be. And there were some health issues along the way. He definitely showed plenty of power this spring. So I think a lot of it's going to depend on TJ Rumfield, who they acquired in the offseason. And he had a very good spring too. And I think just by virtue of him being 25, soon to be 26, the Rockies decided, well, let's give him a shot first, see if we have anything here. And if it doesn't work out and he turns out to be just kind of a quadruple A guy, then we can pivot to Charlie Condon. Like, there's no reason to rush it. We're the Rockies, for goodness sake. So TJ Rumfield may work out. Don't get me wrong. But I would say the odds are better than not that he doesn't work out, just given the lack of prospect stature there. And so I think in leagues where you're stretched to corner infield, I think stashing Condon makes some sense.
All right, let's move on to the stash. Peyton Tolley, starting pitcher with the Red Sox. He destroyed the minors last year, got called up late in the season, did not perform well, but had himself a pretty strong spring here as well. He also experimented with some new pitches. Chris, where would you put Peyton Tolley on not the mustache-o-meter, because obviously he'd be a 10, but the prospect stash-o-meter?
4.5. I really like the talent. I think it's very similar to Jonah Tong, who we're about to talk about, though, where I think the fastball is really good. Toley's is better. It's mid to high 90s with ideal movement shape and release point from the left side. It's one of the best fastballs in baseball.
Yeah.
Legitimately might be. It's just the rest of the arsenal, as we saw when he got called up to the majors, didn't work as well, and he's still trying to figure out what the right mix outside of that fastball is going to be, and presumably he has to pass not just Connolly early, but Johan Oviedo as well. So it just there are multiple guys in his way who are at least good. You know, I know there are some people who think Johan Oviedo has some upside. I think he's like a number 4 SP, but number 4 SPs get like $15 million a year in Major League Baseball these days. So that still has value. So I think it could be a longer time for Peyton Toley. But also, as we talked about with the Reds earlier, 2 pitching injuries can happen back-to-back pretty regularly in baseball. Like, that is just life for Major League rotations, especially in April. So if Peyton Toley is just needed by April 15th, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
What number did you give him on the stasher meter?
I went 4.
So this is probably our first disagreement of some size. I
was going to say like 1 for Charlie Condon, but that's...
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I actually have Peyton Toley as the number 3 prospect to stash after Griffin and Eldridge.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about Jonah Tong, who seems like he has just mastered the minor leagues. I just wonder if what he does works so well against minor league hitters, but just doesn't against major league hitters. I don't want to write him off. I mean, he's still super young and he's developing other pitches. But Scott, where would you put Jonah Tong on the prospect stashometer?
He is probably like a 3 for me. Not that I don't think he could get a chance soon, but the other side of stashing a prospect is you want him to pay off once he gets called up. Otherwise, what was the point of stashing him? And I have real doubts about his viability in the majors for as dominant as he was in the minors. It was mostly on the strength of this unusual fastball shape, and it just didn't seem to play against major leaguers the same way. It was what we've been dealing with Strider, but just in a different way, that his whole arsenal, his whole profile depends on him missing bats with his fastball, and he didn't. And he didn't when he got a look in the majors last year. He wasn't this spring. I don't know. He might. We usually, when we talk about quadruple A players, we're usually talking about like sluggers, but I have this fear that Jonah Tong is going to be the pitcher version of that.
All right, these last, I don't know, I think I've like, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh gosh, I think we can move pretty quickly through these because I think they're lower end or maybe a little bit further away. But next up, I have Jet Williams with the Brewers. He was acquired this offseason in the Freddie Peralta trade, has put up some good numbers in the minors, had himself a pretty good spring as well. I probably wouldn't take too much to beat out like Luis Rengifo or maybe Joey Ortiz. But Chris, where would you put Jet Williams on the stashometer?
It's more like a 3, but I'm not a huge fan of Jet Williams' talent personally.
Don't say that. I have him in the Dynasty League.
Yeah, like I think he's probably going to be a major league player. I'm not sure I see much star potential there for him, but
is it like a Caleb Durbin? Maybe a little bit more juice.
It's very similar to Caleb Durbin, actually. I think it's a very similar profile to Caleb Durbin. He is also, I don't know what his new measurement is. I don't know if they've announced that yet, but he's a little guy, right? He's like 5'7" too.
Yeah, he's a small dude. Yep.
But the nice thing is there are a lot of paths to playing time for Jet Williams because he has played shortstop is his primary position, but I believe he's played some center field. If you can play shortstop, you can play second or third base. So
if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball.
Exactly. It's incredibly easy.
Great movie.
Tell him, Wash. We were just mashing them together. So yeah. I think like Bryce Terang gets hurt. Luis Rengifo is Luis Rengifo. Joey Ortiz is Joey Ortiz. Jackson Churio gets hurt. Garrett Mitchell gets hurt. Like there are multiple
Mitchell
paths.
could get hurt and be bad.
There are multiple paths for Jet Williams to get onto the field. It's just, I'm just not a huge believer in him personally.
Let's talk about Josh Baez with the Cardinals. This is an interesting one because he destroyed this spring. He has not played at AAA yet, but it's another situation where like the Cardinals outfield is Nathan Church, Victor Scott, and Jordan Walker. Like it would not take much. Scott, where is Josh Baez on the Stashometer?
Oh, man, it's hard to put a number on it. I think I'm going to go as high as 4. I think I'm going to put him on the same level as Travis Bazzana because I think he basically controls his own timeline like Bazzana. And I might even have a little more confidence in Josh Baez to force the issue than Bazzana. I think Josh Baez is an elite prospect that hasn't been universally embraced as an elite prospect yet. I think he's going to be a monster, and I think it's going to be sooner than people expect.
And it's a super fantasy-friendly skill set. Like even if you have questions about, his utility as an actual prospect, the fantasy skill set: 20 homers, 54 steals,
287 batting average. Yeah. He was awesome. I have him in NL Labor, and my backup outfielder was Yostinson Garcia. So
he did not make the team either.
Josh Baez, come soon. I need you. Chris, I'm going to give you a double dip here at catcher. Harry Ford with the Nationals and Joe Mack from your Marlins. Deeper names. I think for 2 catcher leagues, we're probably looking at some of these. But where would you put Harry Ford and Joe Mack on the Stashometer?
I'm actually surprised Joe Mack didn't get a longer look this spring because the Marlins are probably going to be using both Agustin Ramirez and Liam Hicks every day, pretty much. And teams typically want a third catcher if they're going to use their catcher as a DH. That's not always the case. I know the Mariners usually don't carry 3 catchers, but I'm a little surprised. He played basically a full season at AAA. Both him and Harry Ford are, I think, as ready as they're going to be. So it's just a question of when they can earn that trust. I would guess in both cases it'll be by May, but I don't think you need to be stashing either of these guys. They're interesting-ish.
They're Ford, I think, scout team in a 2-catcher league.
Yeah, Harry Ford more interesting for fantasy, I think, just the skill set, the potential for him to be a stolen base contributor in fantasy is super interesting, but I don't think you need to stash either of these outside of really deep leagues.
I think if you drafted Ford as your number 2 catcher in a 15-team roto league with 2 catchers where you go 30 deep at that position, I mean, your alternative right now, you're looking at like Liam Hicks and Bo Naylor. Mm-hmm. I might continue to stash Ford in that format because I think he'll be up and getting consistent playing time soon.
Scott, you got a double dip as well, and 2 Twins outfielders, Walker Jenkins and Emmanuel Rodriguez. Both, I think, are immensely talented. Both have dealt with a lot of injuries. So are you stashing either? Where are they on the Stashometer?
I did not include them in my article, even among the 5 honorable mentions. I thought about it. They'd probably be like a 2 on the Stashometer. It wouldn't surprise me if either or both of them arrived mid-season. I just don't think the Twins are in any kind of mood to rush them, and they still have things they have to prove in the minors.
Mm-hmm. We have another double dip here. The Yankees pitchers, Carlos Legrange and Elmer Rodriguez. Legrange flashed some massive upside this spring, 103 miles per hour on the fastball. His last spring outing, he got destroyed. However, Rodriguez, a much more polished pitcher. The problem here is the Yankees actually have some depth, and they have guys coming back from the IL pretty soon. So, Chris, either of them worth stashing or just kind of scout guys for now?
You guys want a hot take?
Yeah.
You guys want a hot take an hour into the podcast?
Sure.
I don't think there's a more overrated prospect in the world right now than Carlos Legrange after that spring training he had. The way people have been talking about him is totally out of line with 1, his actual performance this spring, and 2, his track record.
I get it. Dominating before that last.
The stuff is incredible, but it's it was a 25% strikeout rate this spring. He started throwing strikes. I guess that's a good thing, but he walked 15% of opposing hitters at AA last season as a 22-year-old. like I think he's exciting. I think he's interesting, but I don't like this is not a guy who is considered like a universal top 50 prospect even. And his spring stuff numbers were outrageous, so I think people got really excited about it, but there really isn't a path to a rotation spot for the Yankees right now. Like they have Luis Heel at AAA now, and Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon.
Just till they need a fifth starter,
Yeah.
right? Heel's the fifth starter.
Presumably. But they have Carlos Rodon and Garrett Cole, who should be back before the end of May. And I just look, I would bet on both of these guys, Carlos Agranje and Elmer Rodriguez, making starts this season for the Yankees, and they'll be worth getting excited for when that happens. But I don't think there's any reason to stash either of these guys. And I think the more likely outcome is Lagrange's a bullpen arm for them this season.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to call it a lazy comp. I think it's a pretty easy comp, but we've heard a lot of like Dylan Betances for Lagrange, which makes sense. Like questionable control and throws extremely hard, has a nasty slider. Looking at his game log from last year, he actually went 6 innings 7 times, and he went 5+ in.
Yeah, he threw 120 innings.
So it's, from a workload perspective, he was used like a starter. So we'll see. But again, I don't think he needs stash either. The last name I have on the list here, Scott, is J.R. Ritchie from your Braves. I guess it's been a little bit. The calculation has changed a little bit with Didier Fuentes just having this massive spring. But what do you think about stashing J.R. Ritchie?
He made my top 10.
Okay.
I think we're going to see him soon. I think he's going to have a big role in that pitching staff. Right now, Bryce Elder and Jose Suarez are currently occupying spots, which I could actually see Suarez being pretty decent, but we know Elder, there's nothing there. Like right now, the second best pitcher in that rotation is Grant Holmes, who has partially torn UCL, and they think it's okay. Obviously, he had a good spring, but this is a snake-bitten rotation already, and Ritchie is the most MLB ready of their pitching prospects. So I think he's number 10 on the list, I think, but he made the list. So on the stashometer, I'll put him as like a 5.
So two things. One, Reynaldo Lopez apparently fixed his mechanics and won't be throwing 88 miles an hour in the regular season, according to the Braves. So
I wish Carlos Tevez would.
To be fair, he was more like 91 most of spring, and then
His
it was
last
just
start,
that last start he was down 6 miles per hour instead of just 3.
Yeah. But I think it's super unlikely that Reynaldo Lopez and Grant Holmes stay healthy all season. And I think it's even more unlikely that they are both healthy and effective all season. So we're going to see some young guys in the Braves rotation. I might go with a bold prediction that J.R. Ritchie makes a start for the Braves before Didier Fuentes, even though Fuentes is on the roster just because.
Before Spencer Strider. How about that?
Well, because even after Strider's injury, they came out and said the plan for Fuentes is not changing. He is going to pitch out of the bullpen for a little while, and then he's going to go to AAA to get stretched out. Like maybe he starts a game and goes a couple innings, but I think there's a decent chance J.R. Ritchie matters for fantasy before Didier Fuentes does.
I think they recognize and they're excited about Fuentes and want him to have a big role. They just don't want to use him up too soon, so they're going to slow play him at the start of the year. And that may lead to Ritchie making a start first. I don't think that's a crazy thought at all.
Scott, were there any top 10 prospects on your list that I did not mention here?
Logan Henderson.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He is a prospect, yep.
So where would he be on the stashometer?
There's 2 actually. Logan Henderson is 1. I will give him a 6 on the stashometer, and the other is Ryan Waldschmidt.
Yes, that is a good call as well. Had some massive exit velocities this spring. Just bonker stuff.
So that's an interesting case. Obviously, Jordan Lawler controls his own destiny. He had a good spring, looked better against breaking balls, looked like he could handle center field. Although right now, roster resource shows him in left. But he showed he could handle center field, and I'm not sure how much more they need to see from Alec Thomas, who they currently slot in center. Lourdes Gurriel is going to return from a torn ACL at some point, so that'll cloud things further. But I think Waldschmidt is... I don't think he has to clear too many hurdles there to find his way into the major league outfield. And yeah, it looked great this spring. Great plate discipline, hitting the ball plenty hard. Yeah, I think he's worth stashing in deep leagues with 5 outfield spots.
All right, let's wrap up with a quick look at week 1 sleepers. We are there. The best hitter matchups for the short week 1. So that is from Wednesday through Sunday. This upcoming week, obviously. And the best hitter matchups: Astros, Marlins, Cubs, Mariners, Brewers. The worst hitter matchups: Rangers, D-backs, Padres, Phillies, and Nationals. Scott, who are some sleeper hitters that you like here in the short week 1?
Yeah, for the short week 1, which is the CBS default, certainly for roto leagues, just doing through the first Sunday. Dansby Swanson actually qualifies for this list, which was surprising. Mm-hmm. He's facing the Nationals pitching staff in that first weekend. Andrew Vaughn, only about 50% rostered. He had a huge spring. He was like a 850 OPS guy after joining the Brewers last year. Just hope he plays every day. Moises Ballesteros also taking advantage of those matchups for the Cubs against the Nationals pitching staff. The one lefty on the schedule is Foster Griffin. And I think Ballesteros will play against lefties of that caliber. I suppose we'll find out, but his bat certainly looks major league ready. Dominic Canzone. The Mariners are one of just 4 teams scheduled for 4 games over that 5-day span. One of 4 teams scheduled for 4 games. 3 of them are against lefties. So you worry about Canzone sitting. I'm sorry, 3 of them are against righties. 3 of the 4. You worry about Canzone sitting against lefties. But because they have that extra game, just the one lefty, he's not at a playing time disadvantage this week. I think it's a good time to use him. Cole Young cracks the list. Good chance he starts all 4 of those games for the Mariners. And then Munetaka Murakami, who I'm down on overall. I'm skeptical that he'll be able to make enough contact to fully realize his power against major league pitching. I mean, he struggled to make contact at a good rate in Japan. Obviously was a huge player, was a star there, but as for as much whiff potential as he showed there, I worry about him against major league pitching. But I do think there will be a stint where he kind of takes the league by surprise. The book isn't fully out on him yet. Maybe we'll see him get off to a hot start, and his matchup, at least relative to a lot of other teams for that opening weekend, are pretty good.
Yes. So again, if you need replacements for Seiya Suzuki and Kyle Stowers, which is a question we've been getting, Dom Canzone is an outfielder on this list. If you look back at just the teams that have the best hitter matchups, there are not many exciting outfielders on those teams outside of Canzone. I guess like Owen Casey is one of them. A lot of these names are mostly for like deeper 5 outfielder leagues, but someone like Cam Smith with the Astros, Jake Myers potentially with the Marlins, Christopher Morel, Griffin Conine, Mariners, Luke Raley. The roster resource has Luke Raley actually starting in right field over Victor Robles now. So we'll look at that. And then for the Brewers, Garrett Mitchell. But again, these are mostly deep league names.
And if you're replacing somebody like that, you don't necessarily have to play the streamer game. Like,
yeah, I mean, you can just take someone with like long-term upside.
Carson Benj, who's still available in a third of CBS leagues, or Chase DeLauder, who's still available.
Dalen Lyle is only 65%.
There you go.
Yep.
I'm not necessarily saying stream them this week, but I might prefer to pick them up because there's a better chance they'll pay off in the long run.
If we look at the long week 1, this is March 25th through April 5th. So it's a pretty long period there. The best hitter matchups there: Blue Jays, Cubs, Astros, Rays, and Mets. The worst hitter matchups: Guardians, Reds, Rockies, Padres, Nationals. I think most of these names are... No, there's actually like 4 different ones in there.
Yep. Only 2 of the 6 are the same. Dansby Swanson still tops the lists. The Cubs matchups only get better during the 12-day scoring period. And Munetaka Murakami's still at the bottom of the list. Only one lefty on the schedule, one of the 9 pitchers in the 12 games. So that should also work to Murakami's advantage. The 4 new names, Carter Jensen. There is some question over how much he'll play against lefties, but only 2 of those on the schedule over the 12-day scoring period. And he's, we talked about his exit velocity. He ran like Kyle Schwarber exit velocities last year in both the majors and the minors, continued to look good this spring. And then a couple of Mets who bat left-handed here. Carson Binge, who we mentioned, and Brett Beatty. I'm going to emphasize Beatty especially because it's not every week you'll want to start Beatty. Mets are playing 10 games in the 12 days, though, and only 2 left-handers. So Beatty is in line for 8 starts, you would imagine. And some of the righties he's scheduled to face include Mitch Keller, Carmen Mlodzinski, Kyle Leahy, Andre Palante, and Landon Roop. So like a lot of scrubby righties there on the schedule for Beatty. And then finally, Mike Yastrzemski. Braves also play 10 games. And 7 are against righties. Yastrzemski had a big spring, 6 home runs. I'm not counting on him turning over a new leaf at age 35, but he has spent most of his career at San Francisco, which is a bad place for left-handed power. So only 10% roster. That's a really good, again, for the long week, a really good option to consider in leagues so deep that, most of these guys are already rostered and you're like, don't forget about Mike Yastrzemski.
What about sleeper pitchers for the short week one? Again, we've lost Lodolo, Pepio, Strider in the past couple days. Injuries have been piling up already. Scott, who are some pitchers you like here from Wednesday through Sunday?
Mike Burrows is facing the Angels, who were the most strikeout-prone team in the majors last year and have looked that way so far this spring as well. It's a lot of the same players, so that makes sense. Shane Baz gets the Twins, who are my pick to have the worst offense in baseball this year. So I would be happy to take advantage of that. Matthew Liberatore, coming off a spring where he had a 19% swinging strike rate somehow. I don't know what's going on there, but it was every time out. He missed a ton of bats, and he's facing the Rays. Their lineup looks pretty awful outside of Junior Caminero, Yandy Diaz, and Jonathan Aranda. So Liberatore could take advantage. Oh, kind of a revenge game pick there. He used to be with the Rays. Ended up on the Cardinals in the Randy Arozarena deal.
That was a long time ago.
That was this revenge has been a long time coming. Chad Patrick gets the White Sox. Gotta love that. Grant Holmes gets the Royals. I'm actually a little worried about the Royals as a matchup. They were a bottom 5 offense last year, but between Caglione and Carter Jensen and the fences coming in, I think they could be a lot better this year offensively. But Grant Holmes looked good this spring. Could miss a lot of bats. Will Warren had a great spring, 142 ERA, 0.63 whip. I'm not sure he's actually better than last year. But he comes in, he's been on a nice run. He gets the Giants. They're a pretty shaky lineup. I think it's a fine play. Will Warren.
Mm-hmm. Scott, I hear your Twins' worst offense take, and I will raise you a Nationals or Rockies this season.
Rockies maybe by WRC plus, but that's always, they're never quite as bad as you think just because of Coors Field. Like I think that was still a top 10 offense and runs scored at home last season.
Maybe at home, but I think overall they were second worst.
Oh yeah, no, they're bad. Scored. They're real bad.
They're bad.
So I'm giving a little wiggle room there. Yes, the personnel is bad for the Rockies, but just in case they squeeze enough out of Coors Field that they avoid the cellar there. I'll say Twins is my prediction to finish as the worst run scoring team.
I definitely could see the Twins in the American League, but yeah, there are a few bottom feeders there in the National League as well. I did write down a few other potential starting pitcher replacements for just this weekend. Chris, do you like any of these? We will. I'll just go one by one. Max Meyer against the Rockies in Miami on Sunday.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, I like it too. What about David Peterson up against the Pirates on Saturday?
It's fine. I think that one's okay.
Christian Javier against the Angels. I'm like, I don't know what to expect from Javier.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect from Javier. I don't know what to expect from the Angels. So I think that's lower than Myers, certainly, but also probably Peterson as well.
What about Brandon Sproat? Had himself a nice final start here on Tuesday. He gets the White Sox on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest believer in Sproat, but I think that's an okay streamer for sure. And he's someone that has enough upside that I think you should. I think of these guys, Max Meyer and Max Meyer and Brandon Sproat are the two who you shouldn't just add for streaming, because there's at least some potential that they are more than just streamers. I don't think it's particularly likely in Meyer's case, but he looked pretty good this spring, actually. So,
and then two deeper names that are going up against each other: Steven Matz and Dustin May. They face each other on Sunday.
I like May more than Matz, but I did draft Matz yesterday in the reserve rounds of our head-to-head points league because he is a Sparp. So yeah. I don't mind him as a Sparp streamer for sure.
All right, Scott, bring us home sleeper pitchers for the long week one. So all of these are making 2 starts.
Yes, they are. I did that on purpose. Honorable mention to Max Scherzer, who's only making 1 start, but it's against the Rockies. So he did not make the list.
In Toronto.
Yes. Cody Ponce gets the Rockies and the White Sox. Can't ask for matchups better than that. Welcome back to the States, Cody Ponce. Shane Baz, that first matchup against the Twins, while the second one's at the Pirates. So it looks even better for the long week, starting Shane Baz. Kodai Senga with his new mechanics, improved velocity, and maybe improved control. Cardinals and Giants. I don't think either of those is a bottom feeder lineup, but probably lower third of the league for both the Cardinals and the Giants. Michael Burrows, so he has that great first matchup against the Angels. Second one's against the Red Sox. Don't love that as much, but hopefully he does enough damage in the Angels start. And hopefully he's just good enough that the Red Sox one doesn't end up costing him. Will Warren, when you extend it to 12 days, the scoring period, in addition to the Giants, he gets the Marlins, so that's looking even better. That lineup does look pretty bad once you take Kyle Stowers out of it. I was talking it up a little earlier this spring, but take just one of the big bats away, it looks a lot worse. And then finally, Chad Patrick. White Sox is the first matchup. Royals is the second. I think he's just underrated to begin with. I picked him up in Tout Wars for 27 of the $1,000 budget. I was pretty happy with it. Yep.
Nice. I drafted him for $1 in Tout Wars, so I love the matchups to start. He had a brutal spring, but hopefully he puts that behind him and has some good matchups early on here. Again, that is Chad Patrick, and we made it. Opening night is here. Yankees versus Giants, 8 p.m. Eastern time on Netflix.
On Netflix.
Subscribe to Netflix for that one. Thank you all for an incredible offseason. Your support does mean the world to us. Now the real fun begins. This is the real grind. We've got 162 games coming up. It's going to be a long but very fun season. We are going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. We will be back again tomorrow.
Bold predictions.
Night, 10 p.m. Eastern time. So we will be live during the game. It should be fun. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Get our first Frank meltdown of the year.